Well, we are now into our fourth week, and you are excited, I guess I should say. Hopefully not tired of reading all of this. I do think that you'll find, though, much of the material helps you to understand what's going on in each one of the chapters as we go through the week. So this week, you have some reading to do, and it does focus on rational choice, as this particular theory chapter does. In this chapter, we're looking at not only rational choice, but there's also routine activity, and then there's general deterrence, or the deterrence, and then you have general and specific deterrence. Now, let me talk about deterrence first, because I've always had a kind of a quandary about it. I'm not for sure, to me, that deterrence explains why and how a person commits crime. The general idea is that when we talk about deterrence, it addresses why, not necessarily why a person commits crime, but we suggest that a person commits crime because he or she thinks that they're going to get something from the action that they've committed. And so the best way to deter them from committing crime would be to punish them. And so when you look at deterrence, I think you have to go back and look at a little of the classical writers, some of the people like Becquerel or Bentham, and read some of their early writings about what was going on in terms of how they treated those people who committed crimes. But deterrence, let's just jump quickly into either general or specific, and you'll see this in your chapter. General has reference to how do we dissuade people from committing crime. Well, we can make examples of those who do commit crimes, and that would be specific. When we punish those individuals, then the general public get an understanding that there are certain things that they can or it should do, should not do, and then that helps to deter those in the general population. So there is general deterrence and there is specific deterrence. That's why those who are in criminal justice, sometimes they talk about incapacitation, that if we locked the individuals up for a long period of time, then we would keep them out of committing crimes because they will be incapacitated. They will be locked up, so we don't have to worry about them. Again, that is specific. When you deal with an individual specifically, face to face, or from having committed a crime, then that is what we call specific as opposed to general. We use general when we talk about an example. So keep that in mind as you begin to go through this chapter. Now, along with general deterrence, you have rational choice. Now, I really kind of like rational choice, but sometimes I have to wonder, do individuals really systematically think about what's going to happen if I get caught? I think in most of my reading, I've come to find out that most of them do not. They don't worry about that. They don't care. But when you look at rational choice says that individuals will commit crimes based on the fact that they think that they can either get away with it or whatever they will be able to gain will outweigh the pain. So that even brings us into talking a little bit about the pleasure over pain. You've heard some of those, some of those arguments about, okay, if the pain is not severe enough, and this is, again, where you get into those areas about swift punishment, severity of the punishment, that if those things are not strong enough, then they don't really deter a person. And so an individual may decide, I'll commit this crime. I'll make this choice. I'll logically map out, strategize how I'm going to commit this crime and be able to get away. Well, from my understanding, most of the people think they're going to get away, but we know that they do not. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. Rational choice, that a person systematically, logically work mentally through committing a crime. Now, I will suggest that there are people who are probably professional thieves, professional criminals. Now, they probably do spend a lot of time thinking about the jobs that they're going to commit. But those individuals who are run-of-the-mill, daily kind of criminals, low life, doing nothing, I really honestly don't think they spend a lot of time on it. But as you read through the chapter, think about that, and that'll probably be room for another conversation. Now, kind of connected to that, but something we're probably not going to look at too heavily is the routine activity. Routine activity also, to me, doesn't really explain why a person committed a crime. It talks more about the victim, the target. And it says that if you've got a willing person out there, a willing offender, and if that person can find a victim, which it talks about a person not having guardian or a protection, say for instance a house, doors are left open, or there are newspapers in the yard so you know someone is not at home. Those kinds of things. And so what it says is the routine activity is that people go through their daily lives, sometimes making themselves available to be victims. Well, read through that and you'll see that there are some differences, but there are some similarities between all of those theories, and that is in this particular chapter, which is really kind of interesting as we talk about criminal behavior and its development. Well, we need to finish this week out, and I know some of you are thinking already about next week is going to be the end of all of this. But before we get there, let me talk a little bit about this chapter on labeling. I found this theory to be interesting. I am probably one of those who really like the theory. It's kind of a theory that's it's argumentative. People say, well, I don't know, label. If you label me, if I label you, then will I actually become? And yes, I mean, there are lots of writing there. Tanbaum and Becker and a number of those people. Let's just kind of think about it. This is the way it works. If I tell you that you are no good, if I tell you that you will never be successful, if I don't see you in any other manner, and I don't allow you to prove me wrong by saying, oh, yes, I can read this, I can read that, and I say, oh, no, you cannot. The general gist is that if people in our life then constantly tell us that we're not going to be successful, if we're not going to be good, then this is labeling, and it creates a stigma. And so the theory here is then that the person will actually succumb to the label. Now, I know someone say, well, I've got more control over myself than that. Well, it works the same way, too. Not only that if I say that you're dumb, but I could say that you're smart, you're intelligent, you're nice looking, you're beautiful and all of that. Will you begin to believe that? And I think that's the gist of the labeling theory, is that whatever kind of reaction we're getting from other individuals in our life, then that helps us to follow that same kind of map or guidance, whether we like it or not. So if they're telling us that we'll never be any good, then eventually we may become as if we will not. We'll just think, well, I will never be any good, so it doesn't make any difference what I do. Well, ponder that as you read this area, this labeling. It came out of the 60s, and especially there's this ideal about reaction. People react to us. They give us examples. They tell us who we are, what we are, based on their reaction to us. And then you just have to ask yourself, does that push me? Now, some of you are familiar with, yes, the self-fulfilling prophecy. And this ties into that theory especially, that, yeah, people say, I'm really good, I'm beautiful. Then I begin to think that's who I am, and I act that way. And they say, oh, well, you really are. Well, just think the opposite, since we're talking about criminal behavior. And so people say, well, you're doper. You don't look good. You're not smart. You just run around using drugs, those kinds of things. And will that then eventually, some people say talk about stereotype, will that kind of push us into becoming the label that we've been given? Well, I know that's really just kind of a synopsis of the labeling theory, but it really is worth thinking about. As you go through life, think about it itself, self-fulfilling prophecy, my self-esteem. Is it based upon my own thinking or the thinking that I've gathered from other people? Well, we'll see this theory being a challenge for us, but I think you'll really like it as we end this chapter this week.